industrialized modern society. In this lecture, I will discuss the house beautiful as a phenomenon in home decorating that took by storm 19th century homeowners in both the United States and Britain, where it originated. We will begin with the Philadelphia Centennial, as it was there that the Americans first saw British art furnishing associated with the aesthetic movement. Secondly, we will discuss the origin and development of the house beautiful ideal in Britain within the context of the design reform movement and the aesthetic movement. We will then consider the impact of decorating manuals on the diffusion of the artistic home ideal and its introduction to middle-class homeowners. Finally, based on the manual suggestions, we will highlight the most salient aspects of the artistic interior. The Philadelphia Centennial Exhibition opened its doors on May 10, 1876. Nearly 10 million people visited. 1 in 5 Americans attended the international event in Philadelphia's Fairmount Park. People from all walks of life flocked to see the largest and what was judged by many contemporaries as the most impressive World Fair to date. The vignettes from the newspapers capture the crowd's diversity and excitement and give us a sense of the sheer number of people that visited Philadelphia during the fair, resorted to all kinds of expedients to obtain lodging in the overcrowded city while visiting the exhibition. American newspapers reported on the Centennial daily, with articles commenting on the exhibits presented. 37 countries participated. The British exhibits, and in particular the British furniture, received great reviews. Critics judged the British furniture collection as the most striking among the European exhibits. Visitors were particularly impressed by the displays, which were arranged to create a cohesive visual effect where furniture harmoniously integrated with accessories and surroundings. The British courts were installed in the northwest section of the main building, a large glass, iron, and wooden structure, and featured displays with furniture designed by Bruce James Talbot and Edward William Godwin. These architects, designers, were important exponents of the aesthetic movement in Britain. Their works for the exhibition were recognized as art furniture, a term that originated within aesthetic circles in London and highlighted the furnishing's artistic value. The striking cast iron pavilion designed by Thomas Jekyll, then decorated with gold and orange from James Abbott McNeil's Whistler's designs, as sources reported, was at the heart of the British exhibit. The structure made a strong statement for British aestheticism while also confirming Britain's preeminent position in the field of art manufacturers. Sunflowers and peacocks were the most recognizable emblems of aestheticism. Sunflowers were prominently featured in the pavilion's metal fence. The originality and eclecticism of the British art furniture presented at the Centennial made even more of an impact when compared to the American furniture in the exhibition. As one critic put it, and this is in quotes, the richness, solidity, and exquisite taste of every one of the pieces of artistic British furniture are unparalleled. Compared with them, the exhibits of the American furniture appear as a heterogeneous collection of showy parlor and dining room sets ordered by a mock auctioneer or a Western upstart about to marry and fit up his residence, end of quotes. Rather than a matched set of upholstered furniture and a center table, a collection of different styles cabinets, discreetly positioned and unified by the appropriate use of color, was the staple of the artistic drawing room. It is easy to imagine that Mr. and Mrs. Stevenson, when 1876 were the Maxwell Mansion owners, perhaps with their 5-year-old daughter, Augusta, also attended the Centennial. One could picture the couple discussing what they saw at the fair while riding their carriage back to their house in Germantown, a recently developed suburb of Philadelphia. Rosalie Stevenson's first husband had acquired the house from the original owner, Ebenezer Maxwell, but perhaps the Stevensons, particularly Rosalie, inspired by what they saw at the British exhibits, set out to transform the interior of the 1850s Victorian eclectic villa into a fashionable artistic home. The artistic interior became a model of home decorating in the late 19th century. Starting with the upper classes, the new ideal in interiors eventually trickled down to inform the decoration also of middle classes' homes. Books and articles written by tastemakers disseminated the new ideal. These writers sought to educate consumers to tastefully select furniture, floor coverings, draperies, wallpapers, and other objects used in the home, and cultivate the middle-class readers' taste by teaching them art principles and explaining the importance of a well-disposed household. The first of these type of manuals, Charles Eastlake's Hints on Household Taste, was published in England in 1868 and appeared in the United States in 1872. The ideal of the artistic interior was also immensely popularized in the United States by Oscar Wilde, one of the figures most closely associated with the British aesthetic movement, who was invited to lecture in various cities on the East and West Coast in 1882 and 1883. In the very famous lecture, The House Beautiful, Wilde introduced a new concept of home to the American public, calling for the American urban and domestic environments to reform. His posture as a consummate aesthete did not always found the approval of the no-nonsense old-school Americans, and often was lampooned in newspapers. Still, Wilde's emphasis on personal style did impress the American public. Following the British art exhibits a success at the Philadelphia Centennial, Wilde's lectures helped publicize the ideal of the artistic interior with American homeowners. Similar to the way he was contributing to its broad public reach in Britain, where this new home concept developed in connection to the design reform movement and aestheticism, the pursuit of beauty in art and life. In Britain, critical attention began to shift to the home in the 1850s. Industrialization had brought Britain to the head of the global market and significantly transformed commercial product manufacturing. Automation and mass production had allowed for the manufacturing of household goods at a relatively low cost. However, it had also caused a degrading of the design quality of British mass-produced goods. Despite their lack in design, mass-produced household products found a ready market as the trapping of the newly enriched middle classes. While abounding wealth, they lacked taste and the knowledge of art that had guided aristocratic consumption and bought indiscriminately. In Awakening Conscience, William Holman Hunt depicts a typical middle-class Victorian interior with mass-produced, garish and shiny furnishing, flowery upholstery, wallpapers and carpets. The Victorian drawing room's decor expressed comfort and wealth, and it was meant to impress. This show of mass-produced opulence appalled contemporary critics. John Ruskin, commenting on Hunt's painting, saw the fatal newness of the interior as incompatible with morality. Following another opponent of mass production, Augustus Pugin, he equated good design with high moral standards. Seeking to address the faults of current home design and improve the severe state of decline of commercial design, a group of design reformers led by Henry Cole spearheaded educational efforts to provide inspiration to designers and manufacturers and to improve public taste. Cole called on contemporary painters, sculptors, architects to aid in the reform initiative. From the early 1860s, artists and architect designers took unprecedented interest in the design arts. Among them, Owen Jones, his gifted assistant, Christopher Dresser, the architect, E.W. Godwin, Richard Norman Shaw, Philip Webb, the designers Bruce Talbert and William Morris. Jones, in his Grammar of Ornament, published in 1856, presented a codified system of patents and motifs. Templates were dedicated to medieval patents derived from illuminated manuscripts. Here, Jones advanced the idea about stylization and flat patterning that will characterize the artistic interior surface designs. Furthermore, in his gorgeous chromolithographic plates enriched in gold of his studies of Alhambra, he sparked off a wide interest in exotic ornament, an interest that found fulfillment also in the artistic interior, as we shall see. Dresser was one of the most radical innovators in domestic wares and ornament. With a large commercial practice, he permeated the market with designs that reinterpreted exotic and ancient motifs into bold, abstractive forms in bright colors that challenged Victorian taste and anticipated 20th century modernism. Godwin employed in his designs a visual language inspired by his discovery of Japan. His Anglo-Japanese designs were publicized in pattern books published by the furniture manufacturer William Watt in 1877. Morris, with his friend architect Philip Webb, formed a decorating firm. The firm designed the green dining room at South Kensington Museum, which in structure and treatment influenced the decorative scheme of the walls of artistic interiors. However, the artistic home decor really began to develop as a distinct trend in the home studios of the artists that adhere to aestheticism. Aesthetic artists were committed to the pursuit of beauty in both their lives and art. Above all, they aspired to live artistically and through the worship of beauty to create a new kind of art that was free from academic conventions and unrestrained by Victorian propriety and bourgeois morality. They aspired to create art for art's sake, art that existed only to be beautiful. With the objective to furnish their own residences inexpensively, according to their unique taste, they inaugurated trends in interior design that expressed and impacted evolving attitudes towards the home as a statement of personal discernment. These studio homes introduced an ideal of secular domesticity that rejected the connection between the well-appointed home and morality supported by Pugin and Ruskin, and valued decor for its own sake and proclaimed personal taste rather than wealth as the new marker of social status. William Morris and his wife Jane Burden's house in Bexley Heath was an important predecessor to the artistic interior developed in the aesthetic artist studio homes. Morris designed the house in collaboration with his friend, the architect Philip Webb, as a comfortable and functional residence inspired by medieval and vernacular models. In need of furnishing for the house, Morris asked his friends, the painters Dante Gabriele Rossetti and Edward Burne-Jones and other artist friends to collaborate with them on the design and decoration of the furniture for his home, transferring their skills from the fine arts to the decorative arts. Morris, Rossetti, and other artists created furnishings for the Red House according to new design standards based on simplicity of form, quality workmanship, and truth to materials. Few of the aesthetic artist studio homes survive, but we can somewhat reconstruct what Dante Gabriele Rossetti's drawing room and bedroom looked like, based on descriptions and works of art portraying rooms in his house. Shortly after the Red House was completed, Rossetti took up residence in an old house at 16 Chenies Walk in Chelsea, a somewhat rough neighborhood in London, which Rossetti, of course, found charming. He particularly enjoyed the presence of thrift shops and junk dealers, where he purchased many of the objects and furniture that filled his house. Rossetti rummaged the local shops for old and battered chests and cabinets, Chinese hardwood furniture, and Oriental pieces such as Indian and Islamic brassware. Japanese prints, and Nanking porcelain. Rossetti's house had somewhat of an antiquarian flavor, with old, new, mundane, and exotic objects combined to create a visual effect and evoke a poetic mood. Rossetti's original and eclectic approach to interior design was captured in the watercolor of Rossetti's drawing room by Henry Dunn. Mirrors and old pictures grace the walls. The mantelpiece features Chinese black lacquer panels decorated with birds, fruits, and flowers in gold, and the fireplace is lined with blue and white Delft tiles. The Regency sofa was what we would call today an antique, which Rossetti retrofitted with panels painted with landscape scenes. Here, Rossetti favored a somber, richly colored scheme that paralleled the palette of colors of his painted work from the period, peacock blues and greens with red touches. Rossetti's bedroom features a four-poster bed hung with curtains made out of 17th century vintage fabric, and a chimney piece surmounted by shelves where the artist displayed brass plates and white and blue china next to old candlesticks. The artist's collection of blue and white china influenced the background of the paintings shown here. Rossetti's interest in collecting Chinese porcelain was stimulated by his friendship with James McNeill Whistler, who had settled in a house only a few blocks away from Rossetti's upon his arrival to London from Paris by the end of the 1850s. Whistler and Rossetti became fast friends, and the American painter was welcomed into the amusing circle of artists that frequented Rossetti's house. Like Rossetti's, Whistler's home studio doesn't exist anymore, but the appearance of his dining room and studio is known to us through photographs and as immortalized in the artist's paintings. Whistler's home studio was also unconventionally decorated, with Oriental finds acquired by the artist during his time in Paris. First among all, his prized collection of blue and white china, prominently displayed in purple and rose, the Langleisen of 6 marks, but also Japanese books and woodblock prints. The craze for Oriental imports began among artists and designers in the early 1850s, when Japanese ports reopened to trade with the West, and Oriental goods began to flood the European market. The fact that Japan had remained isolated from the West for 2 centuries made its art and manufacturers uniquely original to European eyes, and particularly attractive for artists seeking inspiration outside the Western repertoire. Different from Rossetti's home studios, Whistler's residence favored plain painted walls in light colors. For his dining room, he painted the walls and woodwork to harmonize in flash colors, yellow and white. He opted for warm greenish grays for his painting studio, while in other rooms, he chose soft greens and yellows for the walls and black lacquered woodwork. He displayed his blue and white china on shelves and alcoves or in cabinets, and Japanese woodblock prints, hanging scrolls, and fans on walls. Each interior was carefully curated. Restraint and balance governed every decision about where and how to display the objects. Whistlers despised the clatter of heavy furniture and preferred light and delicate pieces arranged sparely. In 1877, Whistler commissioned his friend, the architect Edward William Godwin, to design a new house. Godwin's design is considered one of the earliest and most intelligent assimilation of Japanese ideas in the West. The interior decoration was extremely innovative concerning the use of color and the sparing disposition of furniture and details such as terracotta walls and plaster work made to imitate the texture of Japanese matting. The floor throughout the house was covered with a geometric pattern matting. The main studio made an impression on patrons for its spareness and its favoring of Japanism. Color was of the utmost importance to both Whistler's painting and his interior design. The yellow room depicts the studio apartment he inhabited after the sale of his house. The yellow walls glow in the morning light. color dominates, endowing the space with unprecedented luminosity, certainly an effect that must have puzzled more traditional observers. The uniqueness of Rossetti's and Whistler's home studios, the unconventionality of their bohemian lifestyle, their eccentricity in dressing, intrigued the public and fueled a new interest in all things artistic. Responding to such interest and in the hope of increasing commissions, the artists began to open up their home studios to the wealthy elite, hosting regular events. Fascinated by the home studio's originality and fanciful charm, well-to-do attendees aspired to fuse their own homes with similar artistic effect. To create or to possess an exquisitely appointed home was considered the utmost expression of cultivation and aesthetic taste among artists and patrons. Houses such as Leighton House and Townshend's in Holland Park and artist James Tissot's house in St. John's Wood were conceived as palaces of art, where the display of artistic collection was the main priority and a sure sign of aesthetic cultivation. The Arab Hall at Lord Leighton's house was designed to create a whimsical atmosphere, a visionary effect to stage his collection of Islamic tiles. Similarly, Sir Lawrence Alma Tadema's palace, captured here in a watercolor by his daughter, was designed to complement his collection of old and exotic textiles. Tissot's painting portrays a room in his house at St. John's Wood. His collection of Japanese costume and curios is prominently displayed. In his residence in Kensington, Frederick Leyland's dining room featured an intricate shelving system designed to show off his precious Chinese ceramic collection. The decoration provided by James McNeill Whistler completed the display, transforming the interior into an aesthetic gem. We could think of Rossetti and Whistler as sort of influencers with many followers whose personal style established new trends that became widely emulated, creating a demand for all new kind of furnishing, ceramics, textile, and wallpapers, and even clothing, which immediately captured the attention of manufacturers. It seems that artistic living suited not just artists, but was everyone's aspiration. Artists and designers associated with the aesthetic movement were first involved in producing art furnishing and decorating schemes directed to the homes of an elite group of artistic individuals. But eventually, manufacturers and merchants began to engage designers in order to meet the demand of art furnishing at every level. The artistic interior remained remarkably consistent as it moved from the artists' home studios to the middle-class homes, characterized by a specific set of recognizable colors, symbols, decorative effects, and furniture types. It was easily imitated, at least superficially, and successfully interpreted by advice books. Decorating and furnishing advice literature was perhaps the most important means of introduction of the aesthetic interior ideal formulated by the artistic elite to the middle classes. These manuals were directed specifically to women who in the 1870s and 1880s had taken a more active role in decorating the family home, a responsibility that was traditionally fulfilled by their husbands. In a sense, it could be said that through the agency of women, the ideal of the artistic interior entered the middle class home, which was at odds with the aesthetic movement's consideration of women only as the symbols of the beauty that the aesthete pursued. While the tone of the advice books from Eastlake on was rather patronizing towards women, the knowledge provided by the authors did empower women by presenting an opportunity for self-expression through their active participation in the decoration of their homes. In the Three Young Ladies in the Aesthetic Interior by Gustave Sartre Bouvier, the girl's grace complements the beauty of the well-appointed drawing room, but their engagement with the objects surrounding them also alludes to their control over the domestic environment they actively participated in creating, an agency that perhaps they aspire to retain also outside the private sphere. With the help of decorating manuals, women learned about basic design principles and the decorating strategies that characterized the middle-class artistic interior in the 1870s and 1880s. When approaching the project of decorating a room, women were advised to begin with the walls, following William Morris's advice, who famously declared, "Whatever you have in your rooms, think first of the walls." The colors selected for the walls set the mood of the old decorating scheme. Walls were either painted or wallpapered, sometimes both. Colors differed from room to room. Pale colors were used in hallways, and stronger colors were used in the reception rooms. The dining room was to be the darkest and richest, and the drawing room was to be the lightest of all. The appropriate selection and combination of colors were crucial to the success of the artistic interior. Several colors were employed in the same room. One color might have been used on the wall surface, another on the woodwork, yet others on the ceiling and cornice. The artistic color palette featured secondary colors and tertiary colors. The favorites were gold, terracotta, blue, gray, and a great range of greens, soft yellows, peach, and violet. Black or dark brown woodwork was in vogue, which harmonized particularly well with muted colors. In most artistic interiors, the wall surface was organized in 3 horizontal sections, each receiving a different treatment: the dado, the filling, and the frieze. There were a number of variations in the size of each section. Various materials could be used to decorate the walls. One could paint the walls and decorate the ceiling either by stencil or freehand. The ceiling of Mr. Stevenson's bedroom at the Maxwell Mansion was decorated by stencil with a flat stylized design in artistic colors. Another very popular option was to wallpaper the walls. The tripartite organization of the wall required a combination of patterns. A light floral or foliage pattern was most often employed in the filling. The dado was often predominantly geometric or divided in pictorial panels. The frieze would have a bolder floral or pictorial motif. William Morris' firm, Morris & Company, was well known for their wallpaper patents. Morris patents were inspired by organic plant motifs seen in nature and medieval motifs as seen in manuscripts illuminations. Recommended in the home decorating manuals, Morris & Company wallpapers were considered quintessentially artistic and graced many artistic interiors in Britain and America. Artistic wallpapers featured motifs from a variety of sources: medieval, Chinese, and Japanese, and displayed artistic colors. Japanese influence was the hallmark of wallpapers designed by E.W. Godwin, which were produced by Jeffrey & Company, a decorating firm that offered wallpapers designed by well-known artists and architects. Another fashionable type of wall covering was Japanese-made paper designed to imitate embossed and gilded leathers. Also, matting, plain or checked, was recommended for the dado in drawing and living rooms for a light and exotic effect. While initially artistic wallpapers were block printed by hand, cheaper machine-printed versions were introduced during the 1870s. They were presented and sold in suite with different but related patterns for the dado, filling, and the frieze. These less expensive choices were featured designs inspired by artistic patterns and motifs and targeted the middle-class market. Once the treatment for the walls was selected, manuals guided the homeowners through the furnishing of the rooms. For the floors, the preference was handmade carpets from the East, if the budget would allow it, or locally made, mass-produced carpet in organic patterns and artistic colors. Rugs were often used over the carpet, in particular in front of the fireplace. One could purchase the main carpet and small oriental rugs and animal skins as an ensemble and at a reasonable price. Artistic furniture was elegant and spare in its linear form and surface ornament, and designed to reference Asian, Egyptian, Greek, vernacular, and 18th century models. Popular furniture types such as sideboards, corner cupboards, and overmantels were all designed to incorporate shelves to display artistic objects. The overmantel was an integral part of the chimney piece and the artistic interior's focal point. Extending vertically towards the cornice, this was a superstructure designed to incorporate shelvings and alcoves. A beautiful example of a chimney piece and overmantel ensemble was shown at the Centennial in Philadelphia. Here you see it juxtaposed with a superbly preserved 19th century ensemble found in a townhouse in Philadelphia. This is actually a project my firm worked on. The fireplace and overmantel presented at the Paris International Exhibition in 1878 was designed by Godwin and decorated by Whistler for William Watt, and was later transformed into the butterfly cabinet. Overmantels offered youthful display space for homeowners' uniquely collected treasures, in particular blue and white china. Oriental touches were recognizable marks of the artistic interior. Japanese screens often graced artistic interiors. Favored by aesthetic artists for their home studios, they found their way into the middle-class homes. Japanese fans were also popular decorative elements, as well as flower arrangements, often of Japanese inspiration. The manuals provided a structured approach to decorating, which was easy to follow, while still allowing for a great diversity of outcomes due to the variety of selections made available by manufacturers to middle-class homeowners. In America, this genre of do-it-yourself decorating books began to flood the publishing market around the time of the Centennial. American homeowners, and in particular women, welcomed the opportunity to develop their artistic sensibilities and transform their homes into unique spaces and reflections of their personal taste and individuality. Rosalie Stevenson might have purchased one of these manuals as she approached the project to transform her bedroom and sitting room into an artistic interior of her home. The imbalances that increasingly characterized the lived experience in the industrial cities in Europe and in the United States deeply challenged social values, prompting a redirection in people's desires and aspirations. The home environment became the locus of expression of a new way of living that externalized the homeowner's inner desires and personal values. The artistic interior made evident what 19th century people craved most and perceived as dangerously missing from their daily experiences. The aesthetic ideal, with its emphasis on formal beauty and originality, fulfilled such yearnings, transforming interior spaces into artistic visions that expressed and harmonized with the homeowner's desirable versions of themselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Conchetta.